as well. Just 86,000 is where the index is at. Good 390 points of an uptick on Sensex. India Wix at 12, just about an uptick of about 0.7% on India Wix. Now let's also talk about Bank Nifty. Solid 230 points of gains is what the Bank Nifty is seeing. 59,759 is where the Bank Nifty is at. So very good moves across the indices. But let's also talk about some of the top gainers that are contributing to the upside on the Nifty. Well, first up, it's Bajaj Finance, which is up over 3% right now. Yet again, 1.5% of gains over there. Bajaj Finserv, HUL, all of these are the top gainers on the Nifty. However, some of the stocks still continue to be in the red, which are not participating in the rally or the gains that the Nifty is witnessing today. iShares down about 2%, ONGC Eternal down nearly 1% right now. If you talk about the market breadth, NSE advanced decline ratio, that's also in the favor of advances right now. So yes, a very good move is what we are seeing across the market. And today we are now joined by Sharmila Joshi, who's with us, and Kunal Bothra, who's with us in the studios to answer all your queries. Requesting all our viewers to send your queries. The number is flashing on your screen. So do remember to send your name, your location and your specific stock query so that our experts can answer all of your queries. Remember to mention your name, your stock name and the specific query that you have alongside your holding time horizon. So let's get started then. Kunal, let me come to you first, before we get started with all the queries. New records for both Sensex and Nifty. But the big question is whether or not we are going to be able to sustain these levels. Where do you think we are going to end today? Do you think it's going to be a record closing as well? And secondly, by end of 2025, that is the calendar year, where do you see the Nifty headed?
Good morning. Yeah, I think it's a historic day for our markets where the Nifty's come back towards a life high for itself. And this was something which was much due for the indices. I think over the last many weeks, we've been discussing that the markets have been due for a life high with respect to the global underperformance which we've gone through the entire calendar year. So I think in that context, it's a good sign that Nifty has managed to oblige and come back towards a breakout, the life highs. But it's been a fantastic market breadth over the last few months, specifically with the comeback in the PSU banking names, auto stocks making a strong comeback, short covering which you've seen in the IT names, the PSU names which have also started to look attractive in terms of trends. So I think most of the pockets which have started to look a lot more positive. Over the last few days, we've seen the market breadth also starting to participate quite well for the indices. So on the back of this, I would expect that the trend would start to be a lot more positive. And we've seen historically that when market breadth opens up for the overall market, which means that the advances outnumber the number of declines on the exchanges, we've seen that the confidence and the sentiment starts to become a lot more positive towards the market. And I think this time around, we've seen that change happening for the index. This could lead to a further upside going forward for the Nifty. So my expectation is that we should now be looking at 26,500 as the next set of target for the Nifty.
All right, 26,500, that's the next target that we should be looking at. But Sharmila, coming to you, what do you think are going to be key triggers, fundamental triggers that will lead the markets higher? What are some of the three key mainstream triggers that you're watching?
One, I think, first and foremost, if you were to hear any positive news on the fact that we have reached a trade agreement with the US, I think that will definitely take market to that 26,500 level, which Kunal was talking of. Another could be the return of FI buying, because that's been an important piece that has been missing. And in the past, we have seen that some amount of buying does return in the month of December, just before you break for Christmas and New Year, etc. So in that sense, the next 20 days could be crucial for Indian markets. And I think third would be that if from the like we have been hearing of some policy developments, and slowly the talk of budget and expectations, etc., could pick up. So if there are any early feelers from there, then maybe that could add further wings to the market. Yeah, I mean, these could be the top three things to my mind, because earnings are more or less done. We've seen that they're good. That is what is playing out, I feel, at the moment. But these three things could really give you that added sort of impetus.
So FII return, progress India-US trade deal, and the budget policy that we'll have in February. Those are the three triggers that we must watch out for that could give wings to the markets next. So yes, those are some of the triggers that we need to watch out for. But let's get started with all the queries then. So this first query is coming from Noble Williams, who's written to us from Chennai, he's been holding 4,000 shares of Alcargo Logistics at a price of 43 rupees. Now, he says after the demerger, the stock dropped to nearly 13 rupees. So, he wants to know what should he be doing. Sharmila, do you think fundamentally it's a good stock to hold on for the long term, or should he exit?
So overall, I think that if you were to ask me, all cargo, I mean, the logistics space is a space that I do like. But having said that, this is a stock that he has all cargo logistics, not Gatti.
Alcargo Logistics, yes.
Okay, let me have a quick look at the financials. Yeah, this is really bad. So I think that the overall view on the stock seems fairly bearish, and it's become very close to sort of becoming a sort of a penny stock kind of. And I think in this sort of a market, it's more or less there. So I would really get. So they've got an NCLT approval. So if you want to wait for that to play out, but I think honestly, it makes a lot of sense to just exit the stock.
All right, so that's the view. Exit call is what you should consider for Alcargo Logistics. That's the word coming from Sharmila. But let's move on and talk about another stock that is in focus. Now, Chirag Thakur has written to us from Hyderabad. He wants, Kunal, your short-term advice on Manappuram Finance. What would you suggest? What are the targets that we should be looking at?
See, I think broadly, maybe closer to 290, 300 could be a target range for Manappuram Finance. The stock has, really underperformed with respect to its immediate peer, Muthoot Finance, and that too, I think, in a point where the gold prices were having a sweet run for the last, 12 to 15 months, where gold prices on one hand hit levels of upwards of 1,25,000 plus mark. So I think that context, Manappuram Finance has not been able to surpass the previous highs of 295, 300 thereabouts. So from a short-term play, I think if you're looking at trading this, then I think 295, 300 could be a target range for Manappuram Finance. Only once the stock crosses this level of 300 is where I would expect that the stock to gain a good amount of momentum.
All right, so momentum likely in Manappuram Finance once it hits that 300 mark. So yes, that's about Manappuram Finance. But let's move on and take a look at some of the other queries that are coming in. Now, this one is coming from the viewer hasn't really written their name. So requesting all the viewers to write your name and location so that we can attribute the queries to you. Now, this one is on Shakti Pumps. The viewer wants to stay invested for a period of about 2 to 3 years, and he wants to know whether is it a good buy at the current level. So, Sharmila, I'll come to you first for the fundamentals, whether or not it's a good long-term buy, and Kunal, then I'll come to you for the level. So, Sharmila, let's start with you. Are the fundamentals strong enough to stay invested for a period of 2 to 3 years?
Yes, absolutely. I think that the valuations also look reasonable, as well as the stock seems to be doing very well. So yes, I would say that this is a stock that he definitely needs to continue to hold.
Continue hold call coming for Shakti Pumps on the fundamentals. But Kunal, what about the levels? Do you think current levels are good to enter for a 2 to 3 year period?
Doesn't look like. I think the stock is still in a corrective phase and doesn't show any major signs of bottoming out. There could be a retest towards the previous lows of 670 and maybe a drop below those levels because ideally when we see stocks bottoming out, there is a retest of the previous major lows before the indicator starts to show signs of divergence. So I think that trend needs to play out for Shakti Pump.
Okay, so that's the technical view. But moving on, we have a live caller joining us now. Sundar, he's joined us from Chennai. Hi, Sundar. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Sundar calling from Chennai. I'm holding 12,000 shares of South Indian Bank at the rate of 33 for the last 4 years. I can wait another 5 years and no? Shall I hold it or sell now? No.
Okay, so that's the question. South Indian Bank been holding 12,000 shares for a price of 33 rupees since the past 4 years. Shamila, what do you think? Now is a good time to book some profit, or should he continue holding?
So very honestly, I would if it wasn't for the fact that the investor is already making money, the slightly larger tier PSU banks is what I personally prefer as a new investment idea. But there is, some talk of some of the smaller names within the banking space, within the public sector banking names. There could be, something in the offing for them, some staking, some corporate development of some sort. And since he's already making money and he has the patience to wait for another 4 years, I think he should stay put and see what's happening here. And the valuations look okay. But as I said, since he's making money and then there could be a possibility of some corporate development going forward, and he's a patient investor, just stay put.
So you could stay put, but if Sundar were to make an alternative pick, like you were mentioning, which are the stocks that you would recommend from the PSU basket, Sharmila?
The larger name. So it could be Canara Bank, it could be Bank of India, it could be Bank of Baroda. I'm not talking of SBI because that's an obvious, but some of the PNB, some of the larger names.
So some of the larger names are the ones that you could consider. I hope, Sundar, your query was answered, and thank you so much for sending your query and also joining us live on the show today. With that, time now to take a very short break. We'll be right back with more of your queries to be answered on the other side.
Welcome back. You're tuned into SBI Live Studio, and this is the show where we take all your questions and get them answered by experts. I'm Ankita Saxena, and with me is Kanishka Sarkar, and we are taking all your questions and getting them answered by our experts. So let's move on to the next question that is coming in from Triambaka from Mysore, Karnataka. She says she holds 300 shares of JSW Cement at an average buying price of 134 rupees. She wants to know if she should buy more shares now or average it, or should she exit? Kunal, let me come to you for this. For JSW Cement, is this a good time to exit, or should she average in?
See, the price history is a lot more limited because of the recent listing of the stock price. But then what I can sense is, from 160 odd levels, post listing for the stock price, which was the high kind of the stock made in the next I think a couple of weeks post the listing. Post that, it's just gone through a consistent price correction. Now, the only positive part which I can see on the chart so far is that over the last 2 weeks, the stock has been making a bullish RSI divergence, where the prices have made a new low. 125 was the previous low, 115.16 is the recent low for the stock. So prices have made a new low, but the RSI has made a higher low for itself, which means that we could be looking at the stock nearing a major bottom for itself over the short term. So given the paucity of the charts, short term wise, I can sense that maybe at 115 to 17 levels where the stock is trading right now, it's a good zone to go for a contra buy.
All right, it's a good zone to go for a contra buy in JSW Steel. That's the word coming in. But let's move on to the next query then. This one is on IRCTC. This is Raghu writing from Bangalore. He's been holding IRCTC 66 shares at a price of 461. He currently has a good profit, about 15% or so. He plans to hold this stock for a period of about 3 to 5 years. That's his query. Should he, Sharmila, what do you think? Should he continue to hold it, or should he sell and book some of his profit?
Well, given the fact that, we know the story of IRCTC, it has these monopolies on 2-3 of the railway businesses, and that's been their positive. Also, I think the other positive is the fact that overall, the way we are looking at hotel stocks or anything tourism related, travel related, we are seeing an increased everyone seems to be traveling much more. So from that perspective, I think if you're a long-term investor, IRCTC definitely stands to gain. So you should definitely continue to hold.
All right, moving on to the next question. This one's coming from Bharatwaj from Coimbatore. He says he has 350 shares of Exide at a buying price of 412 rupees. He wants to know if he can buy more at the current price. He's looking to hold it for the next 2 years. Kunal, is it a good time to enter Exide Industries?
Not really. I would suggest to avoid the stock as of now, because it still seems like that the stock is going through a corrective phase. Over the last 3 months, the stock has corrected from those 425 levels to now 360, 365 mark. And that too at a point when the markets have gained confidence as well as an uptrend. So I think that context, it's maybe an individualistic downtrend for the stock price, not with respect to the overall mid-cap names. But I think that's why I would believe one should try and stay a little bit on the cautious note, would suggest an avoid on Exide at current levels.
All right, so an avoid call for Exide Industries. That's the word coming in. But let's move on to the next query. This one is a long-term query again. This is PSN Murthy writing from Vizag. He wants to know about Canara Robeco and Canara HSBC Life. Are these good bets for a period of 5 years? He wants to enter at the current levels. Sharmila, what do you think? Are the fundamentals strong enough to hold on for a period of 5 years? And are current prices good enough to enter?
So let's talk of Canara Robeco first. I think yes, if you're talking of a 5-year sort of a period, you can think of entering it. Also, I think Canara HSBC, that too seems the valuation seems reasonable, and that too I think is a good stock from a 5-year perspective.
All right, moving on then from Canara Robeco to next question. This is specifically for you, Kunal. This one's coming from Shri from Bangalore. She says, is it a good time to buy Keynes Technology? She wants to know the short-term target, approximately 1 to 2 odd months. Kunal, Keynes Technology has not been doing that well. In fact, it has been in a corrective phase for a while. Do you suggest entering for a shorter period of time, like say 1 or 2 months?
Not really. I think it's a slightly higher degree corrective wave the stock has gotten into. It's corrected from 7,800 levels thereabouts to now 5,500, 600 mark where it's trading right now. And this is the first quarterly correction the stock has seen in the last 2 or 3 quarters of the price uptrend earlier. So which means that there could be a further leg of downside for the stock price. The previous lows the stock had made in this calendar year so far was almost like 4,000 levels. Now, I don't sense that the stock would probably correct to those kind of points. But then if the intensity of the correction or the news flow worsens for the stock price, you might probably want to wait and watch till the time the stock nears a bottom support. So as of now, I would suggest an avoid on Keynes, not to buy at current levels, but just wait out for this entire corrective wave to play out.
All right, so wait out for the corrective way to play out for Keynes Tech. That's the word. But moving on to the next counter, this one is, this query is coming from Vidya, who's written to us from Chennai. She's been holding 500 shares of Triveni Turbine at a price of 639 rupees and 1500 shares of KPIL at a price of 1255 rupees. She wants to know whether she should continue holding the stock for a period of about 3 months. Kunal, what do you think is the target that we should be looking at? 3 months target for Triveni Turbine and KPIL?
So I think Triveni Turbine and KPIL, both of them have been going through a major corrective phase. If you ask me from current levels, Triveni Turbine currently trading at 540 thereabouts. I would look out for maybe another 3-month targets of 565 to 585 thereabouts. Don't see a major upside over here unless there is any kind of a positive news flow which is attached, because the stock has gone through a major zone of consolidation for the last 3-4 months, and that generally preceding by a downtrend, and that generally indicates that there could be one more leg of correction which could come by. So in the next 2 or 3 months, if there is a case of a bounce back into the stock price, I would suggest that that could be a good opportunity where you may look to book profits on the stock price. KPIL also on the similar lines. I think the stock is in a corrective wave. Downside, I think the stock can hit levels of 1150. On the higher side, maybe 1300, 1320 could be a target which you can assign.
All right, let's move on to the next counter that is coming from KR Balan. He's writing in. He says he wants to know about his senior citizens. He wants to buy Aurobindo Pharma and also Tata Capital for the next 1 year. What would be your advisor? Sharmila, let me come to you for this one. 1 year period, Aurobindo Pharma and Tata Capital. What would be your view?
I would say yes to both. I think that for different reasons, obviously, I think pharma as a sector, my guess is that once you have a trade deal in place, it will sort of start coming into its own, because, that was also one of the export-facing sectors, though I would say it is marginally affected. There was a little bit of a sentiment hit. Numbers are also fairly good for Aurobindo. So I think that definitely you can have that or keep that if you have it. Also, I think Tata Capital, I think that given the fact that we are seeing an overall improvement in the financial space, this also would merit a hold for a year from a year's perspective.
Okay, so that's the view on Tata Capital and Aurobindo Pharma. But with that, time now to take a very short break. More of your queries to be answered on the other side. Hi there, welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Buy Now, Sell Now with me, Kanishka Sarkar and Ankita Saxena. You've joined us live on SBI Live Studios. Well, the show where we're getting all your stock-specific queries answered with Kunal and Sharmila. So let's get back to all the queries then. And this one is on Greaves Cotton. Now, the viewer has asked whether or not they should continue to hold. They bought it at a price of 280 rupees. Kunal, they're definitely witnessing a loss right now. The stock is trading around 202 rupees, Greaves Cotton. But what are your thoughts? Could we see some upside, or could we reach that 280 level again? Or do you think they should book their loss at this hour?
No, I'll not suggest to book losses, but then I think I would just recommend to hold on to the stock as of now. It's in a consolidative phase. It's a very high beta stock. For the last 8 to 9 months, the stock has been into a range as such. Then the range broadly for Greaves Cotton has been closer to 200 on the downside and 230 to 40 on the higher side. And we've seen time and again historically also that the stock has a tendency of going into sharp phases of a breakout for a short period of time. And then it goes into a consolidation. So high beta stock over here for Greaves Cotton. I would suggest a hold, but I would suggest an average out only if the stock crosses levels of 240, even if it happens in the next 1 or 2 quarters.
All right, so that's the point of view on Greaves Cotton. But let's move on to the banking pack then. This is coming in from K.N. Swami, who's writing in from Mysore. He says he holds 2,000 shares of Bank of India at a buying price of 126 and 1,000 shares of Karnataka Bank at 205 for the next 3 years. What would be your suggestion? Shamila, let me come to you for the banking names. The Bank of India and Karnataka Bank, the PSU sector. Now, we are seeing the PSBs outperforming, and they're clearly playing a catch-up here. Do you see this rally to continue? And for the period of next 3 years, do you find comfort in these two names?
Bank of India, definitely. Karnataka Bank, maybe not so much. Karnataka Bank, overall, it's not really, the valuations seem high, and it's been a slightly, I would say that in terms of, as I said, my preference would be with Bank of India. But as of now, I think you can continue to hold both.
So you could continue to hold Karnataka Bank. That's the word coming in. But moving on to the next query, this one is on Reliance Industries actually. The viewer is holding 450 shares at an average price of 880 rupees. They have a significant profit right now. Kunal, what do you think is the next target that they should be looking at, or should they book some profit right now?
No, I think why book profits in Reliance Industries? And since you've purchased that price, which has been 880, I think if I'm not wrong, I remember this to be, the COVID low for Reliance Industries. I'm not sure whether it was price adjusted, but it was closer to that kind of a point for the stock price. It's been a phenomenal uptrend for the stock, continues to look attractive. You can't have a point where the markets continue to make life highs and move up higher with Reliance Industries lagging behind by a huge margin, both in terms of time as well as in terms of price. On the higher side, difficult to ascertain a target as such for Reliance Industries, but we've seen historically that, when the stock scales past above its previous life highs, whether it was in 2022, 23, or even prior to that, it has a tendency of moving up at least by a margin of 15 to 20% further from those levels. So if in case the stock breaks past about the 1600, 1640 barrier, then we could be looking at another 250 to 300 points on the upside, potentially over the next 1 to 3 years.
All right, so that is Reliance Industries. Let's move on to the next question. This is coming from Jay Krishnan from Kozhikode, Kerala. He says that at what levels can he enter Maruti for the next 6 months? Kunal, let me come to you for this one. Maruti, for the next 6 months, is a good entry level?
Well, it's a good stock, but not a precise entry level as such, because I would believe that the recent corrective wave where the stock was around the 15,000, 15,200 kind of a range, that's a good range to buy Maruti, because that's where I would believe that a lot of supports, retracement price, demand zones would probably originate for the stock price. So currently the stock is at 16,100 mark. I would suggest that wait out for a phase of correction as and now it comes by into the stock price as a good opportunity, closer to 15,200 levels for Maruti.
Those are levels to watch for Maruti. Another big question coming here for BSE. It's a long-term query from Kedarnath Reddy. Sharmila, let me come to you for this one. He has 100 shares at a price of 2,500. He's clearly sitting with a profit right now, and the stock has seen a very good run-up, 60% of uptake in 2025 itself. Do you see more upside coming for this stock? He wishes to hold it for a period of about 10 years.
Yes, I think we can definitely continue to hold. Of course, I think keep revisiting because, 10 years is a very long period of time. But I think for the near term, the way our markets are, the way overall participation in the market is increasing, I think any of these names which are sort of related to capital markets are worth looking at. So BSE definitely. I think another trigger for BSE could be that when NSE goes for listing, there will be, that obvious sort of interest in all the exchange sort of stocks, whether it's a BSE, whether it's an MCX, etc. So I think yes, definitely from at least a couple of years perspective, it's a definite hold. But as I said, 10 years is a long time, so keep revisiting that stock. But for now, it's a definite hold.
All right, so we perhaps will be revisiting that counter, but for now it's a pass. So let's move on then to the next question. This is coming from Arjun, who's writing in from Kolkata. He wanted your view on power grid for the next 3 months. Will it cross 300? Kunal, let me come to you for this one. Power grid, how does it look to you on the charts? Power grid, it's at 274 right now. In the next 3 months, do you see it crossing 300?
Very difficult to say that because it's a very low beta stock. To gauge a low beta stock in terms of time is very, very difficult. In terms of trajectory, yes, the path towards 300 could be achieved for a stock like Power Grid because we've seen some recovery coming back into the traditional power names, specifically the private sector ones, which have been showing signs of recovery, good strength, as well as stability at lower levels. So I think in that sense, yes, Power Grid could be a good stock which can continue to rise up higher on a more gradual basis. But I'm not sure whether 3 months is a sufficient time frame for the stock price to hit those levels, of 300.
Okay, so that's about Power Grid. But another query on the power sector, Gayatri writing from Hyderabad. Kunal, her query is on Tata Power. She's been holding 3 shares at an average price of 398. She wants you to suggest a target for 2 months. Should she continue to hold for 2 months? And if so, what is the target that she should be looking at? And another, what could be the target for GMR Airports?
So for Tata Power, yes, as I was mentioning earlier, that many of the private sector names are starting to make a good comeback for themselves. From a 2-month time frame, I would look at 420, 425 as a target range for Tata Power. For GMR Airports, on the other hand, I think closer to 114, 115 could be a target range which you can look at. The stock is in a very strong bout of momentum. We've seen very good price volume action for GMR Airports over the recent past. So I would place a target closer to 114, 15 for the stock in the near term.
All right, so that's GMR Airports on the for the tech check. But let's move on to the next question coming in from Ignatius, who's writing in from Kolkata. He says he has 100 stocks of ICICI Bank at a buying price of 1,417 and 50 stocks of L&T that he's bought at 3,600. Can he hold for a longer period of time for the next 3 years? Can he add? And at what levels? Sharmila, first let's get a perspective on ICICI Bank and L&T for the next 3 years, especially for ICICI that has been stuck in a range, at least on the charts. But for the next 3 years, long-term perspective, what would you say for ICICI and L&T, which is fundamentally a very strong company?
So for the near term, it does seem that the PSU banks are sort of taking the lead where the entire banking space is concerned. Having said that, I think ICICI Bank is an excellent name, so definitely you can continue to hold it. So it's a hold. So I think it's a yes for both L&T and ICICI Bank. I think from a 3-year perspective, where markets are, where we envisage, both the businesses going sort of the kind of gains that they could potentially make going ahead. From a 3-year perspective, both stocks are a hold.
Both hold call for ICICI Bank and L&T. Let's move on to the next query. And Navendu Sharma is writing from Hyderabad. First of all, he's wishing good luck on the Nifty all-time high that we have touched. And he's also talking about public sector banks, which yet again, like he has also pointed out, are the flavor of the season. He has Canara Bank below 100 rupees and Bank of India around 120. He wants to know, should I book profit now or continue to hold? He's a long-term investor. So he's asking, and I quote him, "Kya picture abhi baki hai?" So do we see more upside for these two names, Canara Bank and Bank of India? Sharmila, what do you think?
Well, I would say picture abhi baki hai for both. So whether from a valuation perspective, whether from the way we are seeing gains in the numbers, etc., and outlook going ahead. So I think yes, there's a lot more that can happen in both these names. So continue to stay put.
All right, so picture abhi baki hai for both the banks. But with that, let's move on to the next counter. The next counter is coming in from B. Soumya, who's writing in from Chennai. She says she has JSW Energy at 610 and Suzlon at 50. What is the target that is expected for the short to medium term, or should she average in at current levels? Kunal, what would be your what would be your take on JSW Energy and Suzlon? Good time to average or good time to get in right now? Or what should she do with these counters?
Yeah, good time to average both of these names, JSW Energy as well as Suzlon. I think these stocks have gone through a decent correction after a phase of a consolidation. So both of these stocks, JSW Energy at sub 500 levels where it's trading right now, and even Suzlon, which I think has been trading in the band of 50 to 65, 70 thereabouts over the last many months. I think both of these stocks, they start to look attractive at current zone.
Okay, so that's about Suzlon Energy. But with that, time now to take a very short break. We'll be right back with more on the other side.
Welcome back. You're tuned into SBI Live Studio by Nasella. I'm Ankita and with me is Kanishka, and we are getting all your stock-specific questions answered by our experts. So let's resume with all your stock questions then. This one's coming in from Padma, who's a senior citizen who's writing from Mumbai. Wants to know if he can sell Bajaj Housing, Tata Elxsi, and where can he make, where he's already making, I think he's saying he's already sitting at a 15 to 20% loss on these counters. Kunal, what should be the strategy now, Bajaj Housing and Tata Elxsi for both? He says he's sitting at a loss of almost 15 to 20%.
No, I think it's a good time to hold on to these stocks rather than exiting, because these are not under quality names for themselves with respect to the entire sector. Yes, these stocks have gone through a correction like most of these mid caps have gone through, and there would be a phase where these stocks may start to look attractive. I think these stocks have come back into a sharp corrective wave. They have established strong support for themselves. I would suggest a hold at current levels and not a sell.
Okay, so you could hold at current levels, Bajaj Housing plans, that's the view. But moving on to the next query then, Sharmila, let me come to you for this one. This one is on L&T Finance, another one from the L&T group. The viewer Noel Pereira, they have 22,000 shares of L&T Finance. They bought it at a price of 60 rupees. They are sitting with a significant amount of profit. They want to know, should they book some of their profit or continue to hold it for an even longer term?
So, very honestly, I feel it's always a good idea to sort of book profits, especially since their buying price is so much lower. Having said that, I think we've repeatedly said during, in this past hour that if there is one sector that's leading from the front in this rally, it's been the financials, the NBFCs, banking sort of space. And this is a name from that space. So I think for now, it's a definite hold. Maybe you could just sort of keep tracking this space, and since you have such a large holding, just see whether the trend really changes in the coming months and then take a call. But for now, to my mind, you should just stay put with what you have.
All right, so that's the view on L&T Finance. Let's move on to the next query, which is coming from Vijay, who's writing from Chennai. He says, it's happy that we have already hit an all-time high on Nifty. Time to celebrate in the Indian stock market. That's a wait and watch. But Kunal, his question is that he wants to know if he can buy Canara Bank at current levels. Seems at a high level. How was the trend going to be for Canara for the next 6 months? And can he do fresh buying into the stock at 150 odd levels is what he wants to know.
See, I would not recommend a buy at current levels, even though, of course, most of the PSU banking stocks are looking attractive, because for the first time, I think we're starting to see signs of bearish divergences on the PSU names, and specifically the ones which have run up exceedingly high. Canara Bank made a recent high, I think yesterday or day before, made a fresh high of 150 to 53 thereabouts, but the RSIs have made a lower high for itself. So which means we could be in for a bit of a time-wise pause or mild price-wise correction over here for like Canara Bank. If you're looking to buy the stock, I would suggest levels sub the 145 mark over the near term as good zone where you can look to enter.
Okay, so that's the view on Canara Bank, the target that we should be watching out for the next 6 months. But moving on to the next query, this one yet again from the power space. This one is on Adani Green. This is K. Narasimha Reddy writing from Hyderabad. They have 50 shares at a price of 984 rupees. Sharmila, what do you think? Adani Green, a good buy for a longer term perspective?
Oh, yes. I think the valuations look reasonable, and green energy, again, as a space is something that I like. So, yes, you could look at, definitely hold what you have, and you could buy additional as well.
All right, hold, and you could also add in to Adani Green Energy. But let's move on to the next question. Another one from the power energy space. This is Tejal is writing in from Pune. Wants to know about NTPC. 100 shares bought at 415 rupees each. Should she continue to hold it or sell it? Kunal, coming to you. NTPC. What is your take on NTPC?
See, I would recommend to hold on. It's a rough phase for NTPC, which the stock has seen the last 8-9 months. But then historically, we've seen that the stock had done phenomenally well from COVID lows, which was I think around 80, 85 thereabouts for NTPC. The stock had moved up to 400, 450 mark. So it's going through a time-wise correction more than a price-wise correction. It could take another maybe a few quarters for the stock to try and come back into a momentum zone. But whenever that happens, I would believe NTPC is a quality stock which can come back towards potentially its life high. So it's more like a wait and watch, and especially I think if you have that kind of a bandwidth in terms of time horizon, and you can extend it to at least a couple of years or more.
Okay, so wait and watch for NTPC. Let's see if it touches its lifetime highs again. So that's the view on NTPC. Moving on to the next query, Radha Krishna writing from Bangalore. Their query is on Newgen Software. Very quick query. Kunal, 6 months period, they want to buy Newgen Software. Are the current levels good?
Yeah, it's a good zone where you can look to buy the stock at current levels. It's come back towards a good support around the 800 to 880 range.
All right, so that's the view on Newgen Software. Moving on to the next question, Sunil Kumar is writing. He says he holds 50 shares of GMDC at a buying price of 595 rupees. Wants to know if he should hold or increase for the long terms. A long-term perspective, Sharmila, let me come to you. GMDC, how does it look to you in the long term? Because this one's done pretty well for itself, almost 60% returns in the last 6 months.
This is a stock which is in news simply because we are hearing of some policy on rare earth minerals, and GMDC could be a stock that could gain from that. So wait a bit, hear what, if anything, comes of that. And in any case, I think the stock for me is a hold.
Okay, so GMDC, a whole call over there. Next up, another query from Krishna, who's written to us from Chennai. Their query is on Utkarsh Bank, 600 shares at a price of 56 rupees. Continue to hold. They haven't given us a time frame, but Kunal, what do you think for a period of about 6 months to 1 year? Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, 56 is their buying price, 600 shares is what they have.
So it's in fact a good time where you can look to even average. It looks like that the volumes in the last 2 months have increased significantly for Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. The stock is almost at 16-17 rupees right now. So good time where you can look to accumulate, because if these volumes are hinting towards any kind of a major bottom formation for the stock, then you might see a decisive change of trend going forward.
All right, moving on from Utkarsh Small Finance Bank to the next question called Mahalakshmi from Hyderabad. She says she's holding 300 shares of KEC, KC International at a buying price of 925 and is in loss right now. She wants to know if she can add more average in perhaps. Kunal, is it a good time to average in on KEC International? What would be your view?
See, the stock is still trading below its long-term averages, and it's now in very close distance to breaking below the previous swing lows. I'll suggest to just wait for another couple of weeks. In case if the stock breaks below the previous low, which is around the 630, 650 zone, then there could be an additional selling pressure into the stock price. But say over the next couple of weeks, if the stock holds on to this current zone and doesn't break below the key support levels, then there could be a sign of confidence where you may start looking at averaging out the stock, because potentially then this could indicate that a near-term bottom could be in place.
All right, so that's the view on KEC International. But let's move on to the next query then. This one is on Syrma SGS. They want to know the view for another 1 year. Should they continue to accumulate? They want a view from a technical point of view. Karthikeyan, writing from Kerala, is a senior citizen. Kunal, what would you suggest?
So I would suggest that you can look to accumulate the stock even at current levels. Try to use dips also. I think the stock has a tendency of going through a broad 10% to 15% correction. The recent correction was from 870 levels to 750 mark for Syrma. Yes, and currently the high for the stock was around 900 mark. So in case if it dips down to 800 or slight below levels, good zone where you can look to enter.
All right, so that was the last question for the day, Kunal and Sharmila. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us and answering all our stock-specific queries. But with that, it's time out on this edition of bnsn Now. Kanishka and I will take your leave. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to write to us, because we'll see you tomorrow with your questions being answered. Thank you so much.